The sliding glass door of cabin 8042 was left slightly ajar, letting in the warm, salt-laced breeze of the Caribbean Sea. It was the early morning hours of March 24, 1998, and 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley had simply ceased to be. Just minutes earlier, her father had seen her sleeping peacefully on the balcony of their suite aboard the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas. When he returned, the chair was empty. Her cigarettes and lighter were gone, but her shoes remained neatly placed on the floor. In a confined, floating city surrounded by miles of dark water, a young woman vanished without a single sound, leaving behind a chilling void and a mystery that would consume her family for decades. The vessel was a marvel of modern leisure, a towering sanctuary of indulgence making its way toward Curaçao. For the Bradley family, this voyage was meant to be a celebration, a brief respite from the rigors of daily life in Virginia. Amy, a recent university graduate with a vibrant spirit and a fiercely protective love for her rescue bulldog back home, had initially been hesitant to go. She harbored a deep-seated fear of the open ocean. Yet, reassured by her parents and her brother, she boarded the ship, settling into the rhythm of extravagant dinners and late-night entertainment. The Rhapsody of the Seas offered an illusion of absolute security, a closed ecosystem where every entrance and exit was supposedly monitored. The night before the disappearance, that illusion remained perfectly intact. Amy and her brother Brad had spent the late hours in the ship's dance club, mingling with the live band and other passengers. According to her brother, they shared drinks and danced until the early hours of the morning. Brad eventually retired to their shared cabin suite around 3:30 in the morning, leaving his sister behind for just a little longer. It was a mundane, ordinary decision, the kind made countless times by siblings on vacation. The band members later reported seeing her briefly after Brad left, marking the final verified moments of her public life before the timeline fractured. By 5:15 in the morning, her father, Ron Bradley, awoke and noticed his daughter resting on the cabin's private balcony. The sliding door was closed. He went back to sleep, a fleeting moment of parental reassurance that would soon curdle into an unimaginable nightmare. When he woke again at 6 o'clock, the balcony was deserted. The sudden emptiness was profound. A quick scan of the room revealed nothing out of the ordinary, save for her missing cigarettes. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, no overturned furniture. The silence of the cabin stood in stark contrast to the rising panic in Ron's chest as he realized his daughter was nowhere to be found. Frantic searches of the immediate corridors yielded nothing but the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Ron and his wife Iva alerted the crew, expecting a swift, coordinated response to find a missing passenger on a vessel with nowhere to run. Instead, they encountered a bewildering wall of bureaucratic hesitation. The family pleaded with the captain to keep the ship away from the dock in Curaçao, fearing that if Amy was being held against her will, she could be easily smuggled ashore. Their desperate requests were denied. The gangways were lowered, and thousands of passengers poured out into the vibrant port city, potentially carrying the answer to Amy's fate with them. A formal search of the ship did not commence until hours later. Crew members knocked on doors, but they did not thoroughly inspect every cabin or restricted area. The initial assumption by the cruise line was tragic but simple, suggesting she must have fallen overboard. Yet marine search and rescue protocols were initiated, and the Coast Guard scoured the waters along the ship's route. They found no trace of her in the Caribbean Sea. Furthermore, Amy was a strong swimmer, and the balcony railings were exceedingly high, making an accidental fall highly improbable. The physical evidence, or rather the sheer lack of it, simply did not support the narrative of a tragic accident. The failure to find a body in the ocean shifted the horrifying reality for the Bradley family. If the ocean had not claimed her, then human hands had. The empty chair on that balcony became a permanent fixture in their minds, a haunting symbol of a life violently interrupted. They were forced to return home to Virginia without their daughter, carrying a psychological burden that defied description. Their home, once filled with Amy's laughter, became a command center for a desperate global search. The grief was not a quiet mourning, but an active, agonizing campaign for the truth. Law enforcement faced a jurisdictional nightmare. Because the disappearance occurred in international waters on a ship registered in a foreign country, the authority of federal investigators was severely limited. Detectives had to rely on the cooperation of the cruise line and local authorities in the Caribbean, a fragile alliance fraught with miscommunication and conflicting interests. Crucial surveillance footage from the ship was either unavailable or inconclusive. The initial mishandling of the potential crime scene meant that any forensic evidence that might have existed in the corridors or public spaces was lost forever beneath the tread of thousands of vacationers. With the overboard theory rapidly losing credibility, a far more sinister possibility took root. Investigators and private detectives hired by the family began to look closely at the crew and the band members who had interacted with Amy the night before. Photographs from the cruise showed certain individuals paying unusually close attention to her. The chilling realization dawned that a cruise ship is not just a floating resort, but a transient, unregulated space where predators can easily blend in with the staff or passengers. The isolation of the open water provided the perfect cover for a calculated abduction. This dark theory gained terrifying momentum in the summer of 1998, just months after the voyage. A Canadian tourist visiting a beach in Curaçao reported seeing a woman matching Amy's exact description. The woman was adorned with distinctive tattoos that mirrored Amy's, including a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder and a gecko on her navel. According to the witness, two men were aggressively escorting her, and she appeared deeply distressed. The tourist, unaware of the high-profile missing persons case at the time, only recognized the significance of the encounter after returning home and seeing a television broadcast. For Ron, Iva, and Brad, this sighting was a double-edged sword of agonizing proportions. It provided a surge of desperate hope that Amy was still alive, breathing the same air, existing somewhere under the Caribbean sun. But it also introduced the horrific reality of what her life had become. The thought of their vibrant, independent daughter being held captive, stripped of her autonomy and subjected to unimaginable horrors, was a psychological torture that never ceased. Every phone call, every knocked door held the terrifying potential of news they simultaneously prayed for and dreaded. The sightings pointed toward the grim, subterranean world of international human trafficking. The Caribbean, with its porous borders, transient tourist populations, and myriad of small islands, serves as a known transit route for illicit networks. Experts in human smuggling note that young, attractive tourists can sometimes be targeted, abducted, and forced into the sex trade. The suddenness of the vanish point, combined with the organized nature required to smuggle a person off a heavily populated ship, suggested a coordinated effort rather than a random crime of opportunity. The cruise industry's pristine image masked a terrifying vulnerability. The narrative took another shocking turn in 1999. An American Navy sailor visiting a brothel in Barbados claimed he was approached by a young woman who introduced herself as Amy Bradley. The sailor reported that she pleaded for help, stating she was being held against her will and could not leave. Before he could act or gather more information, men in the establishment quickly ushered her away. The sailor, fearing for his own safety in a foreign port, did not immediately report the encounter. By the time the information reached the authorities and the family, the trail had once again gone ice cold. Each tantalizing clue seemed to evaporate as quickly as it appeared. Investigators chased down these leads, traveling to the islands, interviewing locals, and scouring the seedy underbellies of port cities. Yet, the criminal networks operating in these regions were deeply entrenched and fiercely protected by local corruption and a code of silence. The family even set up a toll-free hotline and offered a massive financial reward, drawing out a mix of well-meaning tipsters and cruel extortionists. Navigating this labyrinth of false hope drained their resources and tested the limits of their endurance. Years later, in 2005, the mystery deepened through an unexpected digital channel. An organization that tracked illicit websites discovered a photograph on an adult escort site operating out of the Caribbean. The woman in the image, listed under a pseudonym, bore a striking resemblance to Amy Lynn Bradley. Forensic artists and facial recognition experts analyzed the photograph, noting distinct similarities in the jawline, the spacing of the eyes, and even the faint outline of a familiar tattoo. While investigators could not definitively confirm the identity, the family felt a chilling certainty that they were looking at the face of their lost daughter. This case shattered the collective illusion of safety surrounding maritime vacations. The Bradley family's relentless advocacy exposed critical flaws in how the truth behind a disappearance at sea is handled by massive corporations. Their tragic ordeal highlighted the urgent need for standardized search and rescue protocols, improved onboard security, and clearer jurisdictional guidelines when a passenger goes missing in international waters. The story transformed from a singular family's nightmare into a cautionary tale that forced the travel industry to confront its darkest vulnerabilities. The name Amy Lynn Bradley became synonymous with the fight for cruise ship safety reform. Despite the passage of time, the emotional wound remains raw and unhealed. The Bradleys have never held a memorial service, refusing to mourn a death that has never been proven. Their lives are suspended in a state of ambiguous loss, a cruel purgatory where closure is an impossible luxury. The bedroom in their Virginia home remains untouched, a silent shrine to a life interrupted. The psychological toll of knowing she could be out there waiting for a rescue that has yet to come is a burden they carry with quiet, devastating dignity. The Rhapsody of the Seas continues to sail, carrying new passengers across the same deep, indifferent waters. But the shadow of that early March morning in 1998 still lingers over the waves. What truly happened in those 45 minutes between a father's reassuring glance and the discovery of an empty chair remains locked away. Whether claimed by the sea or stolen by human predators, the unexplained disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley stands as a profound mystery. It is a chilling reminder of how quickly the ordinary can dissolve into the unimaginable, leaving behind only echoes, questions, and the terrifying vastness of the unknown.